Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jaymar Kukina, and my teacher is Miss Noreen Pantonial. So I'm going to report my topic entitled Concept Formation Strategy. So let's proceed. Let's down here. So what is concept formation strategy? Uh, According to ASD 1987, it is a concept formation strategy. Um, it is used by the teachers. So the teachers, when they want their students to make a connections between and also among essential elements of concepts. So as in addition, according to what I have researched on the internet, concept formation strategy is something like uh, inductive teaching strategy, something like that, because there are the teachers want the students to make a better understanding by using the amount or small examples of the concepts. The students, their ideas may grow through this kind of strategy, something like the inductive teaching strategy. It is similar to concept formation strategy. Then the among essential elements of concept. So from the word elements, kumbaga part lang siya. Di siya yung kabuuan or whole. Excuse me. That is according to ASD 1987. So let's proceed. So there are 5 steps. Yeah, 5 steps on how to use on how to establish those concept of strategy. And also these steps can make the teachers to communicate their students. First is, so how can the students know if we me and also a future educator, and if I don't present in the future, and if I don't present my topic or a question or a problem, something like that. If I don't present my particular question or problem, the students don't will didn't know. So first, you need to present the problem or the particular question. After we present, the students will read and know. Second, we need to ask them. We need to ask them did that stated in there in step two. If we need to ask them if the students generates some generates data relevant to the questions, or if we need to ask them if they have their ideas after they observe or read the question or the problem. The third is we need to let the students to group the data according to their similar attributes. Kumbaga kung ano lang yung their understanding or their what they can say about the data that we present to them after we ask them. And the fourth, excuse me. On the fourth step, asked again. The second time, we need to ask again, and then we need to ask them to label each group with a word praise or word or praise. Like for example, if we present some kinds of like in integers, then they may label it if this is negative or positive or something like. Then after label. um we need to go to step 5, the last one. The step 5 is, this is something like, um excuse me, compare and contrast. After they explore and know the relationship between and among the groups, other groups of data, and after they have, or they label it with word or phrase, they may compare it to the other group of data, and it is based on their understanding on how they define those data. So those are the 5 steps on how to establish, or on how to communicate to students, and also establish the the what we call the those questions and problems to the students. So let's proceed. So, um evaluating the strategy. So it is under also the concept formation strategy. The concept formation strategy is very successful when we use this evaluating strategy. Students are, so just like what I have mentioned earlier, um after we use this strategy, the students are be able to group the data. So as what I have mentioned earlier, the students we let the students group the data. Then we ask them if they have some kinds of idea on what they can say. Then second is, students are able to label the different groups. Yeah, and it is similar to the 5 steps. Yeah, then label different groups. Then the third one is, students are able to identify relationships and hierarchies between among the groups. So compare and contrast again. After they know the relationship between two or more datas, they may think or compare to the other. So that's the evaluating strategy. So most effective yung concept formation strategy if these three is seen in the process of having the strategy, or make or establishing the strategy. Excuse me. Useful tips. So these are the tips. First, we need to provide guide questions to help this group of data. Provide questions. So, ito pong number one tips is na-mention na po kanina, which is to provide or to present particular, to help the students to group the data after we present to the students. Then the second one is, we need to write write down all those data that we gathered on the cards, or the what we call paper cutouts, to allow students to group and regroup them easily. So yung kanina, ano ba yung example? Label the data. We need to ask the students to label the data. So we need to write it dun on the cards so that the students will easily determine and label easily. So just like what we have seen in the under the as we observe in the picture, there is a cards and also the teacher instructioning the students. Let's proceed. Simple plan using concept formation strategy. So in simple plan, so in this slide we need to talk about planning. The first one is concept. So first is concept or real numbers. In generating the data, we need to ask the students to give as many different kinds of numbers as possible. So yung na-mention ko kanina is like, if you give some uh, kinds of integers, then they may tell they may tell to us if it is negative or positive. Then after that, their ideas will be their minds will think more. Then after that, they will communicate us easily after we ask them to give their different kinds of numbers as possible. So when we those are my examples earlier, the integers. So here, real numbers. So we need, yeah, after we say that to the students about real numbers, then they may tell to us their what they mean about real numbers. They may give an examples for the real numbers. Then let's proceed. Here, grouping and labeling. We need to ask again the students to group the data again, group with similar attributes and label them. So na-discuss na rin ito kanina when we talk about label and also giving uh, their uh, opinion uh, through by their attributes, by their means. Then possible groups and labels. So like for example, when we have an example of counting numbers, counting numbers, zero, whole numbers, integers, fractions, positive integers, and many more, then we need to, after we present those kinds of uh, numbers and complex, never mention their complex numbers. Imagine after we present those kinds of um, numbers or possible groups, then the students may name on where they belong, or in the real numbers, or what we call complex numbers, or rational or integers. After that, after they group it, then also they need to label after we present those kinds of name, the regrouping and some summing or summation. So and then regrouping, it is also similar here, but in the next one it is uh, form of regrouping only, because when it start about zero, then counting numbers like 1 2 3 4 and 200 or more counting numbers, zero added to the counting numbers is equal to whole numbers, because as what the definition of whole numbers, it is start with zero up to infinity. That is counting whole numbers. Then no, called whole numbers, zero start with zero up to up, and then added to the negative numbers is equal to integers fractions, because yan, when a whole number is add by a negative, it is possible to have a not exact result. So the result is kind of a fraction, integer fraction, then added to the repeating numbers, terminating decimals. So the result, if we add the whole number to the negative numbers, the result would be decimals, uh, something like that, or fractions. And we need to add those integers fractions to the repeating and also terminating decimals. Then the result would be rational numbers. Then the rational numbers added to irrational numbers. Then the last one is what we call real numbers. So when we talk about real numbers, it is composed all of those as what we observe here. Yeah, real numbers and irrational numbers. The whole numbers, integers, and fractions, those are under real numbers. Then you need to proceed. When we talk about worksheet for concept formation strategy, from the word worksheet for concept formation strategy, kumbaga ito yung mga list. So directions, place the numbers that seem to go together in the same circle. So there the I need to present a photo that is containing this worksheet concept formation strategy example so that we can clearly understand. Place the numbers that seem to go together in the same circle. Then name the circles. You can regroup and make additional circles. So it's something like uh, an activity or a worksheet example of concept formation strategy activities or worksheet on the students for the students. So these are the directions. After that, you need to present the what we call the activity or the actual worksheet or the worksheet. Yeah. Then these are the examples. Example. The students, as we observe, there is a box under the circle or box right there, box, small box. Then that box, the students may label and write it down there uh, in the center of the box. Um, Something like irrational fractions, integers, real numbers. Yeah, all of those. And they need to write it there. Then after that, they need to regroup those numbers in there. Negative 1, 2, negative 7, 1 half. That is belong to fractions. So I guess that's all my report, and I hope that uh, you guys understand, and uh, thank you, and God bless, and good afternoon again. That's all.